All right. Well, hello, good morning, and welcome to our first session of our TrinCon virtual event. My name is Bobby Haggard, and I'm one of the consultants here at TrendSoft. Let's first make sure that everyone is logged into the correct session. You've tuned into the session titled Dynamics GP in the Cloud. In this jam-packed session, we will review different options on how to access Dynamics GP into the cloud, some of the benefits of moving to the cloud, and some different options with remote work. Now, a few bit of housekeeping notes before we jump in. First, we've gone ahead and muted all of the phone lines, trying to keep down some of that background noise. If you have a question, which we absolutely encourage, please use the Q&A feature of the Zoom webinar tool. Our team will be managing those questions, and we will look to answer those at the end. We'll have 5 or 10 minutes at the end here to answer some of those questions. If you do have a question after the event, feel free to reach out directly to your TrendSoft contacts. Secondly, if you would like the presentation slides or the video recording, just drop your email into the Q&A. We'll know exactly what that means, and we'll be sure to provide the presentation slides and the recording to you once they become available. Finally, don't forget at the conclusion of the session, you will receive an evaluation. If you fill out that evaluation by the end of the day, Friday, then you'll be automatically registered for our giveaway, and we'll announce the winners and send that out next week. All right, let's go ahead and jump right in. First up with actually a little pop quiz here. So let me go ahead and launch this poll. Just have a little poll popping up here. Just says, what is stopping your team from moving GP to the cloud or to the virtual desktop today? A couple options there. Didn't know that GP could be moved to the cloud or the virtual desktop. Cost or pricing. We prefer to stay on-premise servers, or we're actually considering migrating or moving to Business Central next year. So see a couple answers coming in. A couple people considering moves to BC, others preferring to stay on premise, others didn't know that GP could be in the cloud or virtual environment, which is great feedback. Glad that you're a part of this presentation today. So, all right, let me stop this poll. We'll go ahead and close that, and let's jump right in here. With just a quick review of the agenda of our TrinCon event today, in case anyone has missed any sessions that they may be interested in. So obviously leading off our event is the session that we're in right now, Dynamics GP in the Cloud. On deck at 11, Matt Wood will be providing us with a review of Dynamics 365 Business Central, where our team will talk about how to migrate Business Central to the cloud. At noon, we'll hear from Jeremy Pritchard on our TrendDocs team, where he will review TrendForm solution and will review benefits of automating beyond Dynamics. And then finally at 1 p.m., Nicholas Jackson from our consulting team will dive into Power BI and how to use that powerful visualization and reporting tool to help with financial reporting. So if you have not had a chance to register for any of these future sessions, please just visit our website, trendsoft.com, register for that session, and you will be invited to it as well. If you miss one of these sessions or you can't join because of another meeting, we obviously understand that. We are recording these and the slides will be available. So just let us know and we'll definitely be able to get that information sent your way. All right, so I'd like to quickly introduce Matt Wood. Matt is our Director of Dynamics, and he's been working with Dynamics for nearly 11, 12 years. And he has lots of great experience with all things Dynamics, including GP, NAV, Business Central, PHP Plus, and Power BI. So at this time, I'm going to turn things over to Matt, and Matt, we'll let you take it away.
All right, thank you everybody for joining the session. This session is, as we said, Dynamics GP in the cloud. I am Matt Wood. I'm the director of Dynamics here at TrendSoft. In this session, we will be looking at what we can do with GP in the cloud so that we enable workers to work anywhere that they have remote access or access to internet. First of all, let's take a look at the agenda. So first, before we get into anything with the cloud, let's review what that roadmap looks like for GP. How long is Microsoft saying that GP is going to continue, and see where we go into the future. We'll also look at GP in the cloud. So what are our options for GP? How does GP work in the cloud? Is there any talk of changes to GP and things like that? Also talk about some of the hosting pros and cons. What were ways that we could connect remotely in the past? What's the pros and cons of those? How can we do that today? Along with some options and different ways we can connect. And then finally, we'll look at Dynamics Business Central as well, another option for the Dynamics family that's out there in the cloud. That's an option into the future. All right, so first of all, let's take a look at the roadmap here. So Dynamics GP roadmap, this came straight from Microsoft. It's an image from Microsoft. As we can see, they've gone back a few versions, and we can see where we stand. So first of all, GP 2013 R2 mainstream support is over. There will be no more updates to GP 2013 at this time. Our extended support will end in April of 2023. What that means, extended support, is until April 2023, if you were to have an issue with your GP that needed to be escalated up to Microsoft, we can do that all the way through 2023. That is assuming that you're current on your enhancement, but as long as you are current on your enhancement, we can get cases open through Microsoft and get support from them. After 2023 of April, we will no longer be able to open a case. TrinCon will support GP 2013 into the future, but it will no help will be available to get from Microsoft. So then if we look at 15, same thing, that support ended in 2020, extended support out till 2025. GP 16, that support ended this year in July, extended support out through 2026. Current version of GP right now is GP 2018. Mainstream support will continue till 2023. This means for anybody on GP 2018, if there are tax updates, 1099 updates, there will be releases for this. And then that extended support will go out through 2028. Now, Microsoft has announced that GP will be moving to the modern lifecycle, which is good news if you're a GP fan. That means there's no plans to sunset GP. They will continue to release updates to it all the way out. They've got it mapped out till 2028 currently, but you'll notice it says and beyond there, so we expect that will continue on into the future. So that means we aren't on a fixed life cycle anymore where new releases are coming out almost every 2 years. We're actually going to be getting updates a lot more often with the modern life cycle. So what is the modern life cycle? So first of all, they will only be releasing updates on the current version. There will no longer, you won't see GP 2018, GP 2020, GP 2022. It will just be GP, and it will have a version number. And that version will always be the most recent version, and they will be releasing updates to that version only. So in the modern lifecycle, this is the same regardless of across all Dynamics products. Dynamics Business Central, Dynamics Sales, Finance and Operations, they are all on what's called the modern lifecycle. And that means you're going to get 3 releases per year. And those releases are typically going to come out June, October, and December. The October release will be basically the new release. That's going to be all the new features that they've added to GP will come in that October release, and you'll see those new features. The June and December will include your hot fixes. So if there was an issue with security or something like that, those would come out in that June and December. Your tax updates and your regulatory updates also in this June and December timeframe. So if you're running payroll or you have 1099s, you're familiar with these December updates for taxes. Anytime the tax codes change, they're going to release those updates in December. So that's what the modern life cycle is. It's just basically a way to say we're going to keep GP running, and we're going to actually be adding features to it in a more predictable rate. June, October, December, with October being those new features. All right, so that's our roadmap with GP. So good news if you're a GP fan, you can see that there's nothing from Microsoft is indicating that they're going to sunset this. They've actually moved it to that modern lifecycle. So we expect that we'll see features coming out with GP on into the future. All right, so GP in the cloud. So as we know, we've seen a lot of software moving to a cloud-based only situation. It's a little bit different with GP. GP was not designed for cloud deployment. So when GP was designed back, in the 80s or 90s, it was obviously not designed for cloud deployment at that time. And even with the updates, they have not changed the user interface to be for the cloud deployment either. And the important thing to note here is there are no plans to change the design for a cloud and a web-based system. So we wouldn't expect that GP, one of these updates in the near future, will make changes to the user interface in order for it to be a more web-based, so I can go to a browser and have a web client and launch it. We don't expect that. There's no plans for a change for that. So we don't see a situation where Microsoft's going to have a hosted version of GP. It's always going to be the same on-prem version that we install to local machines to connect to. Now, this does not mean that you can't run GP in a cloud environment. So it doesn't mean I can't set up GP, have my database out in a hosted Azure, hosting.com, Amazon, whatever your choice is there for your cloud environments. Doesn't mean that we can't run it in a cloud environment. It just means it's always going to be, it's never going to be a web client based system. So we're always going to launch an application, and then that's going to be what we connect to. So that's important to note. So although it's not designed for cloud deployment, there's no reason that you can't put it in the cloud and run it in a cloud environment. We have many clients that are doing that currently. All right, so as we know, as kind of what the world is done here in the last 2 years with COVID, the ability to be able to work remotely is more and more important. It's important because I may go into quarantine and I have to stay home for 2 weeks. It's also important because a lot of talent out there is expecting the flexibility to be able to work from home, and its ability to attract talent that's not just in your region. You can go out and hire somebody from a different region, or maybe you have an employee there at your office that they need to move for some reason, but you want to keep them on. Well, if they can connect remote to GP and work, you can keep a good accountant or a good user there employed with you and have them connect remotely and seem seamless. So the world is pushing us to be more remote, more flexible. So we have to have the ability to do that. So in the past, so there's kind of two ways that we saw it kind of before the cloud movement. Number one, this one that we've all seen, it would be a local install, and then we're going to have to use a VPN because we can't connect to GP unless we're inside of our local network. So that's one way to do it. And there are some issues with that, and I think most of you've probably used this over the last couple of years, and you've seen some of these pitfalls. For one, you have some security issues there. Anytime I'm connecting to a VPN, I'm connecting up to that work environment, that work network. So if for whatever reason, if I'm at home and I click on something I shouldn't, or somebody gets into my my network and causes it to be compromised, if I'm also connected to that VPN network, I'm opening up that work network to also be hit. So there's a chance there. Anytime someone connects to the VPN, you're opening up your network from outside. There could be a possibility that there's a vulnerability there. Also, and I think this one's the biggest, performance. So we know that when we connect to GP, even if we're in the work network and the network's having trouble, GP does not perform well when the network is not strong. Especially if I lose that network connection. We've probably all seen where you start seeing these temp tables load up, and you see that problem. You got to close GP, you got to open it back up. So with a VPN, we're adding an additional variable to that. We're adding our local home network. Is it good enough to handle that? So we're adding performance issues. And along with that general performance too, we have issues with GP already. We've seen the batch recovery. We've seen issues where if my network goes down, maybe I have a one-sided entry post. Maybe I have something just posted to the subledger. It doesn't make it to the GL. So again, that performance problem with VPN, that's adding that extra layer where we could also have some of that. And in general, when you're working with GP on a VPN, and I've done this, and I'm sure many of you have, the performance just isn't great. We don't have the same, when we're clicking on things, they're not opening as fast. When we try to run a smart list to Excel, it maybe takes a long time. I'm running a big trial balance. We've seen performance issues there when we're connecting to that VPN. Thirdly, there we do have to have servers, and we have to keep our servers up to date. and we have to have, every 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, we're going to have new servers. So we're going to have to bring in new servers. We're going to have to upgrade them. We're going to have to keep SQL on a version that's going to allow me to stay in that modern life cycle. All of that's going to have to be managed by your IT, and we know that can be expensive. It can be a little scary if the server were to go down. We know we're going to have downtime for quite a long time. So that local install, of course, we're going to have servers on-prem. We're going to have to keep those up to date, and that can be an issue. Finally here, all computers must have an install. So any workstation where I have somebody that needs to connect to GP, there must be an install for this. So if I get a new employee, I know I got to install GP. If a current employee's computer crashes, I'm going to have to go back and install GP. I'm going to have to make sure I install it correctly, keep that documentation up to date for every time I do an install, as well as anytime I upgrade the system. So as I'm in this modern life cycle now and I'm updating every October and every December, every time I do one of those updates, I got to go touch every single workstation. If I have 20 workstations that have GP installed, when I do an upgrade, I'm going to have to go touch all 20. That can take 30 minutes per workstation. That right there is 10 hours of work that has to be done by IT or by TrinSoft, or somebody has to go in and do those installs. So in that environment, a lot of maintenance to keep up, a lot of upkeep, and also just the sheer volume of potential workstations where GP could be installed on. All right, so that's the more general. I've got local installs. If I'm remote, I'm VPNing. But even if I'm not remote, I still have to keep up with servers and computers and workstations. Next one on here is the terminal server with an RDP connection. So this would be more leaning towards the hosted application, but we're doing this all in-house on-prem inside of our network. So I still have performance issues here, again, and it's more not that the GP doesn't perform well, it's more that I'm going to have to RDP and connect to a different computer in order to use GP, which leads to issues. So I'm going to have to not feel like I'm working on my local machine. Anytime I need to get into GP, I'm having to go to some other remote desktop and connect. So that's just, it's not as a friendly work environment as if I had a local install on my computer. Again, I have servers I have to deal with here. So not only do I have to have a database server where I'm going to store my databases, I'm going to have terminal servers set up. And if I grow and I need additional terminal servers or additional power on those machines, I'm going to have to keep up with that. So it's not easily scalable. Even if I'm in a virtual environment, I still have to spin those up and add additional resources to those computers as we scale up. Also, I've got the additional expense of the terminal server licenses. So not only am I paying for GP and all those servers, I'm also going to have terminal server licensing. Also, we see issues with Office integration. So if I need to export something to Excel, I've got to make sure that I have Office licensed up on that terminal server so that everybody can use Office as well. Same with my printers. I have to deal with making sure that all those local printers are connected to that terminal server. So if I'm printing checks from a terminal environment, I've got to run it through that computer down to my computer and into the local printer to print those checks. So a little bit better as far as I don't have all the upkeep of all my additional computers to deal with. When I do an upgrade, I'm really only touching those terminal servers. But I still have those same issues with performance, with servers, and then I have additional expenses there with my Office licensing and my terminal server licenses. All right, so a couple additional options, and now we're moving more into a hosted type situation here. So in the past, even if I'm hosting up in Azure and TrinSoft's hosting that for me, I'm still going to have a similar situation to what I had with terminal servers. I'm gonna host it, so I'm not going to have to deal with those servers on-prem, and those are all going to be controlled either by your office or your IT team or by TrinSoft. We'll handle all the Office updates, and my databases are sitting securely up in an Azure cloud. I have the ability to let people connect remotely without VPNs, But I still have some issues here because I'm connecting to a hosted environment, but I'm still having to RDP or use a remote app or something to connect to those additional to GP. So again, I have that Office integration limitation where I've got to make sure in my hosted environment that I have Office installed and I have the licensing correct so that people can use them. Now, again, like I said, one advantage, again, in this situation, just like with terminal servers, I don't have any local installs. So when I do an upgrade or I get a new employee, there isn't the need to go touch every machine that has GP. I've already got it up on the server. I'm going to upgrade the server and it's going to be used by everybody. But again, with these remote services, RDP, or remote app, I still have the need for terminal licenses. So I'm still going to have to make sure that I have those licenses installed. I'm going to have to scale that as I add people. And I'm going to need that just like I would if I had a terminal server. And then a big one we see with this hosted environment with the remote services is the printers. So if I'm working even in the office and I need to print, well, now I'm going outside of my environment and I'm connected to this hosted version, and maybe those printers are not connected locally. So there's work to do to make sure all my printers are connected. And it's not a feel like I'm working on my local machine. So again, the biggest advantage of having those local installs is for the user experience. That's the best because I'm working on my local machine and it feels like I'm working on my local machine because I am. With this, I don't feel like that. I'm remoting off to another computer, and I don't feel like I'm working on my local machine. Anything I've got saved on my local machine, I can't get to from that machine. So, last one we're going to talk about is this Microsoft Virtual Desktop. So this is a new technology that Microsoft released. If you've ever used a Citrix or Cisco or something like that, where you almost feel like you're launching a mobile computer, same situation here. It's Microsoft's version of that, and it's a very nice, it's a nice technology. We've been using this internally, which I'll talk about here in a minute. But so again, we get a local computer feel. So I feel like when I use this, I'm really working on my local machine, even though I'm really not. I'm working out there in a hosted Azure environment. Again, this with the virtual desktop, you're going to have Office 365. So any of those Office limitations we've had with the integrations or needing Office licensing up in a hosted or a terminal server, SPLA type deal, we don't have that here because we're going to just use our Office 365. And we know that with Office 365, I believe we can go up to 6 different workstations where we use that. So no limitation there. I'm going to be able to use Office without any issues. Again, no local installs. So all the problems we've talked about already, where we're having to touch local machines after upgrades, we aren't going to have that here. Again, it's one source of where GP is, and we just upgrade that one system. We've taken upgrades from taking 16 hours just to update the workstations down to 30 minutes, where we're just installing it one time and we're ready to go. Our team here, if you've worked with Jason, you know when we do upgrades, we do know what we're doing there. We know how they work. This can potentially cut your upgrade time, in a third. We can take a third of that time that we've used to deal with local installs, and we're taking that away now. And then finally, with this virtual desktop, we can have multiple apps installed on it. So anything that you're using that you're having to install locally on a machine, we can eliminate that and have it all up here on our virtual desktop. So if you have a separate system you're using for your AR or your payroll or fixed assets, or you got a job system you're using, all those can be installed out in Azure and then connected to this virtual desktop. So you're not having to, again, you're just doing that one time, and that's for everything, not just GP. All right, so let's take a look and just see what that virtual desktop would look like. So what you're going to do is you're going to install an app on everyone's computer. Now, the good thing too with this is you don't need super powerful computers to run this because all of your resources are going to be pulled out and being used in Azure. So they'll launch this application. You'll tell them to go ahead and hit subscribe. When they do this, they're going to log into their Microsoft Office 365 account, And then your admin's going to control what apps they have access to. So when they subscribe, they'll launch this, they'll subscribe, and it will pull in all the apps that they have that they need. So if I were to add a new employee and they're in the AP group, well, I'm going to assign them to the AP group, and when they subscribe, they'll have all the apps that they need. So I don't have to worry about keeping up with, okay, well, Sally over in AP needs access to these 6 apps. So every time we get a new AP person and Sally's new, I got to go install those 6 apps. I wouldn't have to do that because I've got this virtual desktop already set up. She's going to subscribe to it, and she'll have access directly to everything she needs to do her job. So you can see I've logged in. I actually am logged in as 2 separate accounts here. I've got my MWood at TrinSoft. That's my account. And we do use this internally, mostly for our Dynamics nav system. And I have access to that because I need access to that. And all Brett had to do was set this up and give me access to it. I also have another account down here. So this is my demo at TrinSoft account. And in this one, I have more apps that I can launch. So you can see I have a development environment. I've got GP. I've got Excel. I've got Teams. Whatever that I need. There could be fixed assets. My AR system, my jobs modules, whatever. I can have all that listed here and have access to. And all I have to do to launch them is just double click and it will launch. You can see it launched GP. So just felt like I just launched it right there from my desktop. Now I'm already logged in, so I'm going to cancel this one. I've got it right here, and you can see it's just down here in my taskbar, and it feels just like any other program that I've installed locally, but it's not. It's installed out there on an Azure environment. So I'm inside of GP, and you can see this feels just like I would feel if I was on my local computer. I can click through. You can see the performance is just acting just like it would if I had anything else. So I can go in and I can do a journal entry. And again, you see that performance. I'm just tabbing through, and it's working just like, feels good. I don't have any of that spinning stuff going on. And I could pick some accounts, and I could create an entry here. Just pick another random account down here. And I could post this. And you can see that works very nicely. Great performance, just like I would otherwise. And my reports go here. So notice too, I'm benching the printer. So if I go to my printer here and I say, okay, I've got all my printers that were connected to my machine. You can see this one right here. This is a printer at the office. I could select that and print that right directly to the office printer. I'm at home right now. I could even, if I needed to print something for somebody at the office, I could click that and hit print and send that off. So maybe your AP folks are on quarantine, but you still need to get your checks out. Business doesn't stop. They would have access to that check printer there at the office. They could run their checks just like they always do, print them. They print to the office, and somebody could grab them. Or maybe you have multiple locations, but you need checks printed to a certain area. You could have all those printers set up out there in the Azure environment and print those anywhere that need to be printed. Also, so if we look at our smart list, and again, we're going to see the performance is good here. It's just like if I was there at the office. I'm going to go to my account transactions, and we'll know, like, when we connected to VPNs with GP, this could take minutes to run this kind of report. But you can see that's running just as fast as if I were there. Performance is great. And I can even kick this out to Excel, and it's going to use that Office 365 license that I've got set up and export this right out to Excel for me. So again, a great piece of technology here for us to work remote, because it's given us the look and feel just like we're at the office. But we're actually at home, or we're on vacation, or wherever we may be. We're able to connect. You can see Excel opens, no problem. And I can use Excel just like I would if I had it right there on my local machine. I'll enter a pivot table, do an account number, debits, credits, and you can see that's fast. No performance problems, no lagging. So now I've got GP in the cloud. I've got a way for my users to connect very nicely, look and feel similar to what they would get if they had everything installed locally. I did not connect to a VPN, and I'm using GP pretty much just as if I was at the office. I can work anywhere, and I can do this. The other thing is, because I'm subscribing to this, um, I don't even have to have my computer with me. As long as I have access to a computer with internet, I can subscribe to this anywhere. Maybe I go on vacation, I forgot my charger, I'm going to use my wife's computer. No problem. I just subscribe to that and I connect. Whereas before, if I had done that and I forgot my computer and I didn't have my VPNs installed, that would have been a really big hassle. It's not here. I can easily subscribe and I can connect anywhere. Also, think about if you've got conference rooms or something like that where you need to be able to have GP up on the screen. Well, with this, I've just got to, all I got to do is subscribe on that computer. And again, I can launch GP and work just like I would if I had my computer connected up. Training room's another great example. So if I need to do training, and I might have 30 computers there in my computer training center. Well, before I would have had to install GP on all 30 of those computers in order for people to use it. Well, not anymore. They will just open the remote desktop, log in as their user because they have access to GP from their Office 365 account. They launch GP, they get trained, and it works great. All right, so that is our GP in the cloud virtual desktop. Come back out here and turn on my slideshow. All right, so here at the end, let's just talk about Business Central, just for some other options for cloud working in the Dynamics space. This will be the last thing we go over, and then we'll do some questions. So let's talk about what Business Central is first. It was formerly Dynamics Nav. So if you've heard of Dynamics Nav or you used that in the past, that is what this is. So it's Dynamics Nav. They've just rebranded the name to Business Central. Now, Business Central is cloud hosted or it's on-prem. Now, since this is a cloud-based talk, we won't talk about on-prem. We'll just talk about the cloud hosted version. Now, this is different than what we just saw with what we just looked at with GP. With GP, we have to have an Azure server up. We have to spin that up. We've got to install that and do that. Not with Business Central and the cloud hosted. Microsoft handles all the maintenance, the behind the scenes database creation and all that. We're just connecting to the front end of this system, and we're using a browser to do that. You can see in the picture here, I'm just on a Chrome or an Edge browser, and I'm launched that particular link, and I have my system right here in front of me. Now, whereas GP is not designed for a web client, Business Central is, and it's the only way to use Business Central. So everything, regardless if you're on-prem or hosted, it's all going to be web client. And it works very nice. It's very modern look and feel to what that system is. Also, it's easily customizable. So if you use GP, you know that if you need to make a change to the system, it's not easy. So you pretty much have to live within the confines of what GP can do. Or you might have an ISV that you tack on to do certain things. That's not the case with Business Central. With Business Central, you're going to have the ability to customize the system, add fields, add tables, add a complete module if you wanted to. And the way these customizations work is they're called extensions. So what you're actually doing is extending the native functionality of the system. And it's almost, think of it like an app you add to your iPhone or your cell phone. You're not actually changing the operating system. You're just adding an additional functionality to it with an app. It's a similar idea with the Business Central extensions. So when you install that extension, it's going to extend the functionality. But the nice thing with it is anytime there's an upgrade to Business Central, it actually happens automatically. There is no work to be done to upgrade a system. Not like with GP, we would have to spend the time to upgrade the system. That's not going to happen. You're actually going to schedule your update. It's going to happen overnight. And when you come back in the next day, you're on the new version. And all those extensions, because they're not touching the native code, work just fine, and they go on just like they would before. Also with Business Central, it's got a strong supply chain and manufacturing module. So in GP, if you're using inventory, it works well for purchase orders, sales orders, things like that. But if you're getting a little more advanced manufacturing, you're using production orders, production bombs, routes, planning, anything like that. It does not quite work as well as I think as in Business Central. Business Central has got a very strong supply chain and manufacturing models. Lastly, with Business Central, we've got simplified integration. So Business Central has a robust API behind the scene that you can expose pages so that other systems can push data in or pull data out. And again, since it's customizable, if you have a custom piece that you need to have integrated, it's no problem. You just show those APIs. You also have the ability to do file drops, and you can do those just like you would, with an integration manager with GP. Same idea over here. They use a tool called Rapid Start, and you can import things just like you would in GP. The other good thing about this is because you already own GP and you're current on your enhancement, you pretty much own Business Central as well. So you can move to Business Central for a limited cost on the software side. Obviously, there's going to be some work to be done to get data moved and things like that. But it's not like you're going out and buying a brand new piece of software and have to pay all that upfront cost. You already own it. And there's lots of promotions out there that give you the ability to connect. The one difference, as I mentioned it here, named user license model. So GP uses a concurrent model, which means I could have 20 users set up, but I only have 15 licenses. As long as only 15 people are in it at the same time, I'm good. With Business Central, it is named user. So all 20 of those users would have to have a named license assigned to them, and all 20 could get in at the same time. But if you talk to Tara or Bobby, a lot of the times Microsoft's offering promotions if you wanted to switch to Business Central, and they'll basically make you whole there. If you have 15 concurrent users, you typically can get a 2-for-1 or a 3-for-1 and have a similar annual fee that you would have with your annual enhancement. All right, so that's Business Central. I do want to just show you what that looks like. So I'm going to pop out here. You can see I'm just launching an Edge browser here, and I'm going to click over here, and this is Business Central. So everyone's going to have a link to connect to, or from their Office 365, they'll have a button there that they click, and they'll be able to access Business Central. So I'm not going to go through a lot of the the pieces here. This isn't a Business Central webinar, but just to show you what it looks like. And to also mention that I'm going to do another session here at 11, and we'll talk about how you can migrate that data from GP into Business Central. So if you want to stick around for the 11 o'clock, you'll see that as well. But this is what Business Central is. You can see it's a role-based system. I've got a role center, and it's going to give me insights and different transactions that are based off my role. All drillable. You can see I can just drill right in and see that. And this is similar if you're used to your GP with your smart list. Everything's kind of list based inside of Business Central. So every page is almost like a smart list. I can set filters here. I can do whatever I need. And then I can export this out to Excel by just hitting open in Excel. And you can see that launched my Excel. I can click open file. And then there's my nice list out here that I just pulled right from Business Central. So like I said, I don't want to go in too deep here into Business Central, but just wanted to give you a view of it. Again, it's web-based. I'm just connected to an Edge browser, and I'm connected to that. All right, so that is all I have prepared. So we will stop. We will go ahead and take questions here for you. If you have any questions on hosting or Business Central or anything like that, I'll be happy to answer those. Thanks.
All right. Well, perfect. Well, thank you, Matt, for that great information regarding Dynamics GP and the cloud. We now have a few minutes here for questions. So our team has been monitoring the questions throughout the presentation, and we'll certainly address those now. If you have a question, go ahead and drop that into the Q&A. We'll be happy to to answer those. Or if your questions are, again, more specific to what you guys do, how you operate, let us know. Just contact us after the session or tomorrow, and we'll be happy to jump on a call and schedule some time with you to address that. So Matt is on here with us, and so we can answer some of those questions. Matt, I do have one question that I saw come through, or that I see out here. It says, just to reiterate, GP is not going away right away, right? There's no need to immediately rush or migrate to Business Central. There is that roadmap that we looked at. Can you just kind of re-comment or re-talk about, kind of just confirm that GP is not going away immediately?
Like we saw there in the graphics. So 2028, they're showing all the way out to that, which, that's 7 years from now. And it says beyond, and they've gone to that modern life cycle. So I don't expect that we'll see any kind of sunsetting there, but at least till 2028, we have word from Microsoft that they'll continue to update the system up to that.
Perfect. And then you also hit on this earlier too. You commented on if you have GP in a hosted environment, either Microsoft Virtual Desktop or hosted environment, the upgrades are easier. I think I heard that correctly, but can you just reiterate that as well? Because I know that's a big time saver for a lot of clients.
The reason they're easier is, let's say I have 20 GP users. Anytime I do an upgrade, I would have to touch all 20 of those user workstations. Whereas with hosted, I'm just going to update the one server to the new version, and then people are connecting to that. So from 20 to possibly 2 potentially, where you're taking that from about 10 hours down to 30 minutes to an hour on those upgrades.
Perfect. All right, and then the final question that I have right now anyways is, and again, if you have a question, please just drop that into the Zoom Q&A feature and we'll get that answered for you. Again, I think you talked about this initially, but if you could just expand on a little bit, is there a migration tool or a pathway from GP to Business Central to help make that easier?
Yeah, so there is a selfless plug here. There's another session here at 11 they'll walk through that, but there is a GP migration tool that'll take your GP database, convert it into Business Central, and bring over your master records and certain types of transactions. So that is something that's out there.
Perfect. All right, and then we just had another question come in. Says, if you host GP in the cloud, do you still need your on-premise SQL servers?
So no, SQL Server would be up in the cloud. Now, what license you use, that's kind of something we would discuss with you, whether we want to continue to use the license you already own, or we move into an Azure SQL type licensing, more SPLA. So the answer is no, you would not have a SQL Server, but we may use that licensing if you've already purchased it. It just makes sense. It's cost effective that way.
Perfect. All right, well, I don't see any other questions. If anybody does, again, have a question, please drop that in or contact us directly after the session today or in the weeks to come. We'll be happy to address those. Matt, really appreciate your time on the webinar today and answering these questions for us.
Yep, no problem.
For those of you, as we wrap up here, a little bit of homework for those in attendance. First, as I mentioned, please be sure to complete that session evaluation prior to the end of the day Friday, so you're entered into the drawing for those giveaways. Secondly, if you haven't already done so, please go to TrinCon.com, register for those additional sessions, such as the one about the migration to Business Central, the one about on trend forms and automation that can come, and then the one related to Power BI that's out there. And then thirdly, for those, again, who have questions or support needs, please come to us, reach out to us and let us know. Our technical team is ready, happy to engage and help with your team to better use the system to enhance your organization's efficiency, automation, and much, much more. Additionally, give us a like or a follow on any of the social media platforms. We're on Twitter at TrendSoft. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn. We're often posting news, updates, releases, information about webinars, etc. And then finally, please visit our website, TrendSoft.com, as we are continually posting blogs and other information that we think we would like to share with many of our clients as well. All right, I do see two other questions that have come in here. questions about CPE, yes, we believe that these sessions do qualify for CPE. We will be submitting certificates for that later this week or next week for those who would like that information. So if you have that request, just drop us an email, drop us a line, and we'll be sure to get those sent out to you as well. With that, I don't see any other questions that are out here. We do certainly thank everyone for their time today on this first opening session of our TrinCon virtual event. Thank you for attending this session about Dynamics GP in the cloud. And on behalf of our entire TrinSoft team, we'd certainly like to say thank you to each of our clients in attendance for taking the time out of your busy day to participate in this event. We look forward to continuing partnering with each of you into the future. We hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you all.